Okay.
Got it.
All right, this is the Maynard Zoning Board of Appeals. We're holding our meeting remote tonight. It's February 26th and it's 7:05 in the PM. And what do we want to do first? The first thing on our agenda is review the minutes from last month, January 22nd. Can we have a motion to approve?
I make a motion to, go ahead.
Sorry, Leslie, before you make a motion,
Yeah.
there's one thing I want to just correct. My name was misspelled on, I think, page 3. There was an I thrown in, but other than that, no comments.
Oh, okay, so I make a motion to approve the minutes of January 22nd, 2024 with the correction of Paige's name.
Sorry, Paige.
Second. No problem.
So any further discussion on those minutes?
No, they look good to me.
There was one I found, it's a minor clerical thing. Somebody's a little overzealous on the capitalization.
Oh,
So if you could look through that, Bill,
Okay.
before you send it out and just, you don't have to capitalize the when it's in the middle of a sentence.
I get mixed up with that one.
So anyhow, roll call vote, and then I'll let you people introduce yourselves to the others, because I got this out of order. I'm sorry about that. So in favor of approving the agenda, John?
Agenda or
The
minutes?
minutes.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, the minutes. Sorry, John.
Could I
Leslie,
have abstained since I wasn't present at the
you can do that.
physically
too.
present? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Leslie,
yes.
Paige,
Yes.
Brad,
Yes.
and were you there, Jerry?
I was.
Good. What's your?
Yes.
Okay, and I'll
Yes.
be a yes as well. So that passes. Now, for introducing ourselves, which I got that out of order. John?
John Corville, member of the ZBA.
Okay, Leslie,
I'm a member of the ZBA.
Paige,
I'm a vice chair of the ZBA.
Jerry?
I'm a very distinguished member of the ZBA.
All right. And Brad?
I am a alternate member of the ZBA.
All right, and the alternate means, because we've got everybody here, the alternate is a non-voting member tonight. He can still ask questions and participate, but he's non-voting. So the first hearing that we have is a continuation from the January 22nd meeting. Riverside Park special permit application filed by Dominic, I'm going to get it right eventually here, excuse me, McConaughey for Riverside Park, Maynard. The applicant's requesting a special permit to extend the existing front setback nonconformity in order to construct an addition to the residence. And from the last meeting, we had asked for some additional clarification on special permits and variances for single family units. And I believe we also had some research in the background. Is that right, Bill?
Yes.
So I would suggest, Bill, that you fill us in on what we have learned.
Well, so far research on the background, as we said, we have discovered nothing in the terms of ownership of the road. That indicated that it was ever taken by the road. Taken by the town or considered for acceptance by the town. The chair and I, Paul and I met with Lisa to make sure we had all the special permit criteria and the circumstances correct. I think we did meet with town council for quite a while. Paul, I think you would agree that it was pretty much the way we had presented. It was conclusive, and that the special permit is the appropriate mechanism in this case, because it is 1 or 2 family home. And I believe that was everything, I think. Are we missing anything, anybody? I forget.
Well, yeah, and you talked to Justin, was it?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, about it's not an accepted road. It was never it has never been considered for acceptance, and it is not something they're looking to acquire.
sure.
Gesundheit.
Thank you.
So the question from me, I'm trying to remember, a month ago was a long time ago, Bill. How
Mhm.
did we leave this application? Did we close the public hearing or not?
We did not. And there was because the question was the board had felt they would be better, they'd feel better after I researched the issues just discussed, and as I mentioned, then you and I actually met with the town council, so rather than
Okay.
me just writing it. So the ownership of the road was what we left it on. We did close public comment, but the public hearing is not closed. You could reopen public comment if you wish.
All right. So with that as new information, any questions that we should discuss further?
Um,
Go ahead, Brad.
is this part of the public comment? Because I have comments that I'd like to make, just to the board without public comment.
Well, you're a member of the board, so we can certainly discuss. Is it new information or is it discussing current information?
Well, is new information different than current information?
Well, things we've already discussed and we're reflecting on it, or is this new data that we should consider that's fresh for us?
Yes, that's why I'd like to talk, once the public, comment period is closed.
All right, I'll let you run it how you want. I just, whichever way. Anybody else have any discussion points? The silence is deafening.
Okay. All right. So yeah, what you could do is just right at this point, looking at our notes, public comment is closed this moment. You could reopen it if you wanted. But at this point, so the board can you're reconvening the hearing. So you can discuss among each other. You can close the hearing if you choose. That would mean no more new information, which if you have new information, obviously you don't want to do that. So there we go.
So Brad, the question is back to you, because once we close it, we're going to be deliberating on the information we have in front of us.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you for that clarification. I appreciate that. So, the only information that I have is, I have talked to the Board of Assessors about who is paying property taxes on that particular parcel of land, which is the road. And all I can get out of them is they don't know who is paying that, paying for that. And they have confirmed that it is not any of the parcels, the occupants, the owners of the properties that we are discussed. There is the area where the road, was dated back to them in like 1993, which is the area of the rail trail. They have that on record, but they don't have this particular part of it. And another piece of interesting information is that it shows that the rail trail portion that they have purchased actually goes into the 40-foot area that's under discussion of the road that's there, and it actually cuts off into that. So nobody really knows what the actual property line is of what the town owns, what the rail trail is, and where, I mean, that's all they know is, I'm sorry, that's all they know is what the property owners own, and where the rail trail goes and the property associated with that. That was given to them in that they purchased in 1993. Other than that, the mystery of
Hmm.
who owns the property is still there, but we do know who does not own the property, and that is the people that own the properties on that street, unimproved street, and the town. It's not part of the town of the rail trail. So there is a mystery here, but there is a plot plan, a current plot plan, and Paul, you saw a previous plot plan. I don't know where you found that showed it being a called Railroad Avenue or something like that. And you also knew of some information that showed each of those parcels were divided up into much smaller parcels.
Yeah, I think that was in his original application as an attachment.
Yeah,
okay,
I
I
submitted
didn't-
that as part of an application.
I didn't see that, so I couldn't find that. It didn't show up on as part of the application package that I saw.
Yeah, that was from like 1880, that diagram.
Sure. So it's basically been a long time since that road has been doing anything, or that area of the road. But apparently it's been designated as a future improved road because it's got the 40-foot wide thing, and whatever, I don't know. I'm not sure about the easements that are there, but there's obviously telephone poles that are in place right now. So I'm guessing that's part of an easement. So I don't know if the 40-foot wide swath that is on the current plot plan includes that easement for the utilities or not.
All right,
So that's all the new information that I have to give.
any questions, folks, on Brad's research?
Well, good job, Brad. And it sounds
Yeah.
like it's almost like a unclaimed piece of property that the town doesn't have and the residents who live there don't have. It just sort of was assumed to be the roadway.
Well, I thought at first it was like a door lot where it was like you find these particular lots when they surveyors go in and all of a sudden they find a parcel of land which doesn't belong to anybody, but that usually happens. But this was in town for a long time.
Yeah.
So obviously at some point it's either the state who owns it or the town owns it, and the town doesn't know it. Regardless, nobody's paying taxes on it.
Yeah, nobody's paying taxes on it. That's true.
Right.
Did you say,
So-
Brad, did I understand? Did you say that some of the rail, part of it was bought for the rail trail in 1993?
I believe that was the case. That's what I looked at was the area to the right. Well, if you're looking at it, it's hard to tell.
Yeah,
Where
it's
the
hard.
rail trail is now, that whole swath of land
Yeah.
was purchased, I believe, in 1993.
So that'd be like a
And
symbol
by
for
the
rail
town.
trail. Yeah.
And then that's not part of the rail trail. And it does look like the very end of that property does cross into the middle or a portion of on the rail trail side of the Parkway Road, or what it's called. So my concern is that there's a lot of encroachment onto that piece of property. I mean, onto the end of the Parkway Road way, or what it's called.
Sure. Well, that's good information, Brad. Does anybody else have anything to add at this point before we, I guess the term is close the public hearing so we can vote and all that good stuff? I'm not hearing anything. So I would assume, Bill, it's been so long now. What do I do next? I'm closing the public hearing and then I talk for a vote, or a motion, or do I do the motion?
Well,
and close the
yeah,
public?
what you'd want to do, you want to close the public hearing. You'd vote to close the public hearing. Now, after that, no new information can come in.
And then we put
and
together our deliberation and then a
Then you
motion.
deliberate,
right.
and you're deliberating, and you're going to determine if the request is consistent with the criteria. Oh, look who's here, Peter. And then you're going to determine if the request is consistent with the special permit criteria. And you're going to consider all those components. And then the board's decision will be, do the positive outweigh the negative basically in this, and then you guys would vote. So at this point, if you want to close the public hearing, you can close it, deliberate, and we can go from there.
Sounds good. So I have a motion to close the public hearing then?
I make a motion to close the public hearing.
Do I get a
Second.
second? Good. Any further discussion on that, or we just take a vote?
No, I have some discussion I'd like to add to that.
This is a discussion on closing the meeting.
Oh, I'm sorry. No,
All right. So John,
Yes.
Paige,
Yes.
Leslie,
Yes,
Jerry,
Yes,
and I'll be a yes. And this one, you're not voting, Brad.
no
All
problem.
right. So now we can deliberate. So what are we deliberating? He wants to put an addition on his structure that takes it right up to the property line or extremely close to it. And if we approve it, we need to find all those issues. If we don't want to approve it, we need to find all those issues. So, any further discussion, Brad?
Yes, I just wanted to make sure John was up to date because I'm not voting, and I was voting in the last couple of meetings. I just wanted to make sure that John understood my point of view, which was, and I'm not trying to like sway you in one way or another about how to vote or anything like that. I just wanted to make sure that you had all the facts that I had when I made my decision, which was the owner wants to put the house, part of the addition of his house, in 1 foot of the road, which would be the area of the improved road or the potential future road that would be there. Right now, it is not a road that is of that dimension. There's a lot of things in the way, but also I want to say that there's an idea that, I shouldn't say it was an idea, but there's a potential for redevelopment of the properties. They're the size of the properties. For instance, the property that the owner lives in is enough to divide it in half by right, I believe, because it's over a 40,000 square foot. We are in the S1 area, S1 zoning district. So there's potential that there could be two properties there. The property abutting that would not be able to be divided in half because it is not over 40,000 square feet. But the property that is a little bit further down is over 2 acres and potentially could be divided into 5 areas. And I believe that some of these things might be able to be divided by right. Is that right, Bill?
Some of them could definitely be, some could be, split by approval not required if they met the criteria, for that. But to be clear, the bulk of this is in the buffer and it's gonna be subject to wetland jurisdiction, so it's not.
Sure.
That was
And-
going to be my
and then-
question, Bill, because of that line of the conservation line,
Right.
even if it was subdivided,
Yeah.
what could you build on it?
No, I believe that there's it's a 100-foot line from the river. And I believe that that some of most of those properties would allow make those buildable lots. So my concern is that if there is that many properties, or even like maybe 1 or 2 more properties, and if they were developed, and perhaps that some of that in the future, and probably in the near future, that some of these houses were to be purchased, or some of these properties would be purchased, that they would be developed as being desirable properties with waterfront. They would be desirable and they would be improved upon with probably large houses. Because the people that would probably, I don't know, I'm guessing this, that they would probably want to have a wider road. And I'm thinking that,
Yeah, that, depending on, I mean, this is a lot of hypotheticals on really.
it is a lot of hypotheticals, but if we were to allow, if this board were to allow a house to be within 1 foot of that road, then that would really hinder the availability or the ability for it to widen that road. And especially at the end of the road where this particular property is, the town owns, it shows that the town goes into that swath of land where the rail trail is. So it becomes much narrower at the end of the road where this particular property is. So I understand that a lot of it is hypothetical, but I think looking forward, and I'm guessing within the next 10 years or the next cycle of people moving out of their houses, that this property is very desirable. These are very desirable pieces of land that will be developed. And I don't see any reason why the town of Maynard would not want to have these places developed, because according to the master plan and things like that, it's the idea is to improve properties and also allow, to increase the tax base, and putting large houses where these smaller houses are, especially newer ones, would certainly, comply with that. And so that's my concern, is that having a wider road and having a house 1 foot from the property, from the road, is a hazard. And I think that it's not really a forward-looking, prospect for the town.
Thank you, Brad. Very nicely said. Does anybody else have any thoughts or comments they wish to share? Paige, go ahead.
I think I alluded to some of this or stated some of this previously, but my thought is just that we're not a precedent-setting board and every decision is made based on the merits of that specific instance. But I do just want to note, I'm looking at, I don't know if I could share my screen, but I'm looking at Mass Mapper now, which I fully admit is not a wetland delineation. But at least half of each of these parcels, they're not only in the 200-foot riverfront zone, which imposes its own development restrictions, but they're also in the flood zone. So any,
Insurance.
right. So I think it's in everyone's
was thinking-
best interest not to develop within the
You can
portions
share
that
it
are in
now,
the,
Paige. You can share it. You should be
thanks,
able to.
Bill, that are within the flood zone. So I feel, I know it's a hypothetical, share screen. A hypothetical situation. Oops, share. I think I'm sharing now, but you can see these are the
We're
red
getting
is the
there.
river,
Yep, good.
is the regulatory floodway. And any fill in that area, you need to do a no rise certification, submit it to FEMA and change the actual flood map. Any development in this blue area is within the 100-year flood zone. It would need to comply with building code. And it's also regulated under the riverfront area and as bordering land subject to flooding. So they need to provide compensatory storage, and it's not impossible, but I think it would be unlikely that we'd see significant redevelopment in those areas. So just looking at the merits of this case where the land at the end is owned as conservation or owned by the state, and there's not a ton of potential in my eyes for significant redevelopment. I hear where Brad is coming from, and I don't think I would necessarily support this scenario in a different location. But here where there's not a ton of potential for intensive redevelopment, I'm comfortable letting this go forward. Given that there is a wider right of way than the current road is developed, and I think there'd be some additional area available if in the future the road did need to be expanded. That's just my 2 cents. And
Yeah,
I'll,
looking at
leave
your
it.
map page, it looks like each one of those parcels could be split in half easily and still have dry land, or at least not blue land,
yeah.
right?
Yeah, that could be, and to me, I mean, I see there a difference in traffic generation between a few single family
Yeah,
homes versus a intensive apartment complex or multifamily dwelling.
okay.
And I think that I would like to think that any future redevelopment would be judged on its own merits in the future. And if the traffic study indicated that road upgrades or other changes need to occur that could not be accommodated at the site, that whatever permitting authority that was before, whether it be us or the planning board, wouldn't allow that to proceed.
Okay, appreciate it.
Can I
So that-
respond to what Paige had to say?
Yeah, sure.
Sure, I think Paige, you're absolutely correct, but I think the redevelopment that would happen on these things is not going to be a 40B large redevelopment. I'm thinking that people are going to subdivide these things, subdivide them and put McMansions on them that have beautiful views of the river, and they're going to be multi-million-dollar homes or potentially $1 million homes, and they're are not going to care about the extra cost for a flood.
Okay.
So I think it will still get developed.
Okay, any other comments? John, Leslie, Jerry?
Well, when I visited the property, I saw that the distance from where the new part of the house would end and where there's an existing fence is, yeah, I was surprised actually at how much land is still, even if it's not his property, that there's a telephone lines going through there with telephone poles, and I just cannot imagine the town taking that and widening it to be a regular road. And I see that there's plenty of space for them to do the development and not be right up against the edge of the property as it stands now. I don't have a problem with it.
All right, because you say right to the edge, you're going within a foot in their proposed plan.
Now, yeah, but that's not the reality of the situation. Have you?
Oh, because of the undeveloped land next to it.
Well, there are lots of plantings between what would be the edge of their property and where the
Existing dirt is.
backdoor edge of the property is, in that there's a fence.
Yeah.
I forget how many feet it is, but it's, I don't know, I'm gonna guess 5 or so feet. It's not like right up against it.
Okay. John, what do you think?
Well, my initial thoughts are, I don't want to go with what ifs, but what they have now. And looking at the photos, when I first saw it, 1 foot from the road did bother me, but it's 1 foot from a maybe road that nobody knows who owns now, and which kind of opened another can of worms for me. So at this point, I'm inclined to let it go.
Okay. Jerry, any thoughts?
Nope, I agree. I
You agree
agree.
with
and what-
which?
Oh, all right. I guess I should be more clear, shouldn't I? Well, after Paige put up the, that map and showing the flood zone, that was a bit more convincing. I don't argue that maybe somebody could split the lot and sell a couple of properties on that, on a parcel of land. And I don't disagree with Brad that, somebody may, build a very expensive home, with a nice water view. But that's a lot of what ifs. And if somebody's going to go do something later, I don't know that we're restricting people's ability to do that. Are we restricting the ability to put in a full town approved roadway? Maybe. But I don't see that as an offering even into the future. Maybe some improvement of what's there, but not a full-fledged accepted roadway. So I would tend to move this forward. And the other thing too, if somebody goes to develop that land, it's going to have to go through a lot of other boards before we ever see it again. Planning board and conservation commission and a few other people. So I'm good with it right now.
All right, so that certainly is enough thoughts to go one direction versus the other.
Yep.
And so I would like a motion to that effect. Yeah,
I
Brad.
have more comments to say. I think it's, I mean, I hear what the board is saying, and they're planning for today, and they're not planning for the future. But we have zoning laws for a reason. We have, and I think that right now, this board is ignoring them completely. And I find it appalling that you would allow future development of potentially a future development to be obstructed because you're not following any of the zoning regulations that we have now. And I find that this board seems to have a tendency to approve just about anything that is going forward in terms of zoning violations. And I think I find it appalling.
Brad, I think that's, I understand your frustration, but I think that's unfair of this board.
No, I think it's true because I'm thinking of how many times has this board ever voted against and not approved something since I have been here? And
Well, I don't know, but I can,
I can say it's zero. It's zero.
It is, I can tell you that,
But I'm not voting tonight, so that's fine. And the reason that I'm venting like this and showing my frustration is because I am not voting tonight. And I just want to show that my disapproval. And I don't think that that people are looking forward to, looking forward into what our potential, ramifications of this decision is. And also, I also find it that the integrity of this board is kind of in jeopardy because we're not enforcing our zoning laws. We have zoning bylaws and we don't seem to be enforcing them. It seems that it's very easy for everybody to say, okay, fine, we'll pass on this. And every case that we've come across, everybody has passed on.
I think that, Brad, I advise this board, and I have to say that really, I think that's not fair, and I'm disappointed.
Well, I know that you advise the board, Bill,
and so
and
it
you
would-
you don't you advise you do advise the board in terms of you allow things to come in front of the board, but in public meeting, I don't see you giving advice, one way or the other. There may be things that are going, behind the scene in terms of one-on-one talking about this and finding out what all the issues are. Because I've talked with you before about a lot of issues on a one-on-one basis. And you're a very reasonable person. I find you, an outstanding, town planner for the town of Maynard. And I'm very proud to have you. And I think you make great decisions. But in terms of the zoning board itself, the decisions that they make, I think that a lot of decisions are made without looking forward and without the thought of we need to really enforce the zoning laws that we have. I mean, why do we have them if they're not going to be enforced? And I know we take them on a case-by-case basis, but often they will be used as a test case for the next person. Like, for instance, the neighbor next door will want to build their house, 1 foot across the road, next to the road. And why would they, want to do that? Because the neighbor next to them did that. So going forward, the neighbor next door might do that, and they'll come in front of this board, and say, we want to do the same thing. And why are you not allowing us to do that? And I think this board would be sympathetic to it and say, yes, we will allow them to do that.
Well, to
And
be
I think
clear,
that-
what the board, Brad, remember what the board is looking at in a special permit case, does the good outweigh the bad? That's the essence of
Correct.
what they're looking at here. And if I thought that if the board was being somehow not being informed properly, but I would address it in this. And in
No,
this
I-
case, this
No,
board,
Bill, I totally agree. I think I think you're totally right about that. I think that the board has been very well informed about the whole thing,
but no, let me
and they're
just
making
finish.
their decisions. But
May I
I'm just saying-
interrupt just for a minute? May I interrupt just for a minute, please? This is an interesting dialogue that you two are having, but we have a case in front of us. We have the public here waiting to hear their decisions. And we have yet to remind ourselves as to what we are voting on. Bill was getting to it a little bit with good versus detriment. I wanted to read the section that we need to reflect on, and we have 6 categories that we need to consider pluses or minuses on. So Brad, I think you've got some good points there, but I also think that this is not the forum for that discussion. Because Bill has been filtering, if you will, the applicants coming towards us, and the real funky ones, he's been suggesting they go back and figure out what they really want to do. And we're getting the ones that are either more positive than negative, or they're on the line. And that's
understand
what
that.
we're
Thank you.
struggling with now.
Sure, I understand that,
Okay,
and I have no problem with what Bill's been doing.
so what we have in front of us now is for a non-conforming structure, because this structure does have a little bit of non-conformance on the setbacks, is we may award a special permit to reconstruct, extend, alter, or change a non-conforming structure only if it determines that such reconstruction, extension, alteration, or change shall not be substantially more detrimental than the existing non-conforming structure to the neighborhood. And in that, we've got the 6 categories to review: the social, economic, or community needs, the traffic issues, public service issues, the neighborhood character, impacts on the environment, or fiscal character. And the issue is, just to remind us, this is a special permit issue, not a variance issue. So we're not dealing with hardships. We're dealing with, let's call them the more community-focused issues. And so what I would like some agreement on is social, economic, or community needs. How does this application make it either substantially more detrimental or not? And
Well,
I don't, go ahead.
I would say, considering that, I think Dominic has 3 children, is that correct? And, the house as it stands now is, perhaps not adequate to meet their needs, but it would be good for the community if they wouldn't have to sell the house and move, that there is a social community benefit to approving this application.
Okay. Traffic,
Your taxes are gonna go up.
yeah, well, the traffic issues. I think we all agree there is no traffic issue, so it's not a more detrimental concept. Public services. The only thing that I worry about on public services is access of a fire truck. Because it is a narrow, windy, or not windy, but narrow, bumpy road to get equipment down in there if they need it. The fire services require a 20-foot width to get anything in there. I don't
But
know
you
if you've
could-
got 20 feet on that road that's available to drive on.
But there is a fence there already, so,
Well, they can walk around the fence. The point is they need to get their equipment in there. Obviously, any major event, they just park on the main highway because they can put their extension truck up there, and that's easier than on the side road, but they might want to put a pumper truck back in on the side road. There's different issues. But the point is that road 20 feet wide? The next issue is the neighborhood character. It's a quiet neighborhood. Is putting that addition closer to the road going to impact the character of the neighborhood?
no, because you won't really be able to see it from the road. I don't think you'll be able to see it from,
Okay.
Yeah.
Impacts on the environment? Is there any impact other than the pile of dirt when he digs the holes? Is there going to be any impact on the environment with this?
no, because the alternative was to have it closer to the river. So it's actually, this is a better solution than some of the other alternatives that he could have done.
And then the fiscal impact, as somebody commented here, it's beneficial to the tax base because he's going to have to pay $1 more in property taxes.
Right.
So we've been struggling with this concept that the building is within a foot of the property line. And the interesting thing here, looking at these 6 characteristics and looking at Brad's comments about honoring the bylaws in their specificness, because this is a special permit, all we've got to deal with are these 6 issues. And is it more detrimental than what it is there now?
I say no.
And so with that, can we have a motion?
All right. I make a motion to approve the special permit application for Riverside Park, Maynard, to extend the existing front setback nonconformity in order to construct an addition to the residence.
Do I get a second?
Second.
Jerry
Second.
seconds. Any further discussion? Hearing no, let's do a roll call. John,
Yes.
Paige,
Yes.
Leslie,
Yes,
Jerry,
Yes,
and I guess I'll be a yes as well. So with that, the motion carries. And now I hand it off to Bill to tell the applicant when what happens.
So what will be done next is, I will draft a decision reflecting the will of the board and their decision. Once that's complete, which is typically within 5 days, 7 days or so, I will, file it with the, town clerk. You will be notified, that it is, been filed, and you have, a 20-day appeal period where, it could be, the decision could be appealed. And assuming there's no appeal, the next day, you have to record it with the registry of deeds, and then you can pull a building permit. And you're done with us. Okay.
Great.
If you have any questions, of course, you could reach out to my office and we'll.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thanks for your patience, Dominic. It's been a long one for this.
Indeed.
No, yeah, thanks, for the elaboration.
Thanks. All right, moving on. We have a variance application by Stephanie Olivia and Daniel Pope, 18 Detling Road, Maynard. The subject property is a non-conforming single-family dwelling located in zone S1 per section 4.1 and 10.4 of the Maynard Protective Zoning Bylaws. The applicant requests relief from a rear setback requirement in order to replace an existing rear deck on the same foundation. So the applicant, please.
Hello, hi, thanks for considering us. We wanted to apply for a special permit. Our house was sold to us with which was unbeknownst to us, but a non-conforming deck. And we had to replace our siding, and in that discovery, we found that the deck itself, specifically the ledger board, had rotting to the exterior walls and the siding as well. So we had to move forward with considering replacing the deck. So we want to replace the existing deck with the same deck using the same foundation.
All right. I'm looking at your maps that you've presented. Can you, Bill, can you put the application on so they can point to where this deck is going?
You bet. I think I can. Give me 1 second here. I think it's. Oh, wrong project. Wait a minute.
Yeah, get rid of that one. We're done with that one. Sorry.
Okay, I just gave you a staff report. Let's see. Can you see the share? Because is it sharing with you now?
No, it's just a black screen.
Oh, well. Wait, it's coming up, I think.
All right, there we go. Now we're getting somewhere.
All right. Yeah, let's see if we can get.
I believe they had some maps in their application, and I
Yeah.
just want them to tell us
Here we go.
where what is happening.
Okay, can everybody see that?
Mhm.
There. How's that?
So it's 44, where the 44 is.
Correct.
And
See the deck there.
this is the deck currently.
Yes.
And what's back here, folks?
Conservation land.
Well, no, it's the, well, yes, it's conservation land. It's the Aspen National Wildlife Refuge.
So I think the next image is a little better because I think that might have some measurements on it.
Correct, yeah, page 9.
This one?
Yes.
Hmm,
And so where is this deck on this image? Is it that little tiny box?
I submitted an updated drawing to Zoe. I didn't realize there was an original map that
No.
was 1:40 scale, and this was a blown up version of that map, and so therefore it doesn't look proportional. I submitted another map to her. the
Yeah,
other-
I've got it. Let
Okay.
me pull it up. I'll pull it up real quick. You did.
Yeah, sorry,
uh,
I'm not a surveyor.
Board, if you want to ask a question, in the meantime, I'll pull this up. I gotta just,
I have a question.
Sure, Brad.
Is there a fence on the back of your property line?
No,
There isn't. So what delineates the your lawn or the back of your property line to the woods or whatever is behind you?
I mean, roughly the end of our lawn is approximately the end of our property line, but it's not exact. The previous owners, we purchased the house in 2022, and
Sure.
they had a surveyor put stakes to plot out the thing, so it's approximately where the edge of our lawn is, but there's no firm
So
delineation.
could you describe the lawn? I mean, is there a drop off there or is it fairly flat or is it what happens with the end of your property and the property behind you or I guess it's a town
It's a pretty
conservation land or whatever it is. Yeah.
Yeah, it's federal property.
Sure.
It's pretty flat for, I don't know, 10, maybe 15 feet before there's like a small stream that leads to wetlands in the back. It's a kind of a
Oh.
seasonal stream.
Okay, so how far away is that stream
I don't
from your
know.
property line?
I don't
What
know.
would you
It's not our
would you-
property.
Oh, okay. Have you been out there? You must have go out there and look at it. Well, I mean, would you guess like it's 100 yards or half a mile or?
Probably about
Maybe.
50 yards, something like that.
I'm just curious.
Over the stream.
Yeah, I think it's like
Oh.
50 yards. It's seasonal. It's not always.
Oh, okay.
Sometimes there's water in it. Sometimes there's not.
So
it's a
just
vernal
would
area.
you say it was would you say it was like dense forest or it was like a mix?
It's pretty dense forest. I think there's a water access, like a town water access. There's a road going back to it from
Okay.
but
An easement.
the Maynard crossings complex. So there's like an access road into it for the public water, I believe.
Can you guys see, Stephanie, I have the updated.
Oh yes,
updated
okay.
drawing
So
up
that's
there.
more
Yeah,
that's
looks good.
reflective of
Thank you,
its
Bill.
scale. Sorry about the initial one.
So is this the existing deck outline, or is this what you want to put? You said you're going in the same footing, so it's exactly the same?
Pretty much exactly the same, yes.
I
What
have another
happened?
question. Is the deck still there or has that been removed?
It's been removed.
Okay,
Yeah,
so you
that's a
don't
good
have,
that's a good point, Brad, because I was
Yeah.
gonna point that out to the board. If the deck was still there, they would be in for a special permit. Because the deck was removed, we had to do the variance, and that was the building commissioner would have required just, to rebuild it. It would have been a special permit. Unfortunately, the contractor removed it, and that kind of put them in a position where they had to go for a variance. It's a good question.
So if it was a safety issue, it was the appropriate thing to take it down. Because you have a rotten ledger board there, and that's a very nasty thing when that gives way and everybody drops to the ground. So to take that, there have been serious accidents when that ledger board is rotted
Sure.
out and it failed.
Yeah, the
Okay.
flashing was installed when the deck was built. It was installed backwards, so the water was going directly
Yeah.
between
Yeah.
the house and the ledger board.
sure.
And so, variance, frankly, in this case, sounds like an easier thing to deal with because you don't have to do all that stuff you heard in the last case. We just have to decide if it's a hardship. So it's an open deck. How high off the ground is it?
Well, that's a good question. It's, I don't actually have that, but there's a rear slider on our house on the first floor, and then we have a walkout basement. So it's at the level of the rear slider. I could go measure it for you right now if you'd like, but it's about 1 story high in the air.
Okay, so the basement walkout is beneath us?
Correct, yep. And there's a concrete slab down there, and then the pilings for the deck, the footings.
So it would be a nasty fall if that thing falls apart.
Hmm.
So any questions from board members here?
I have another question. Is this the, do you have any other egresses from the house on that level other than the deck? Is it, the deck seems like it's one of the fire escapes or way to get out of the house.
I don't know like how many egresses the fire code requires, but on that level of the house, there's just the front door and the back deck door. Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, so you would need to have a second egress. That's very, very important.
And do you have a stairway down to ground level from the deck?
Correct, yes.
Yeah, okay.
So right now you only have one egress from your house.
Yes, without the deck there, yes.
Right, okay.
So any other questions, discussion points?
Let's
Let's go some of the other ones here.
Sure.
Brad, just hold off for a minute,
Yep,
see if anybody
no
else
problem.
has something. Leslie,
No, I'm fine with it.
Paige,
Yeah, no questions.
John,
All good.
Jerry.
I'm good. It appears to be, although maybe the original deck wasn't installed within the parameters it should have been, they're just replacing it. They're
Yeah.
not asking to add 6 more feet or 2 feet or anything. They're replacing, sounds like, in kind. And that's it. So I don't have a problem with that. I have no questions.
Thank you. Brad, you had something else?
Yeah, I'm curious about the financial hardship of this. Because if I look around to the other properties that are around you, if you're looking at your house and there's the 4 properties to your right and the 4 properties to your left, everyone has a deck except for one that only goes out 8 feet behind their house. And they're 12 feet wide. They were also done, well, I don't know if they've had a permit for those or not. Apparently apparently at some point in time, your property itself only had an 8x8 deck on it. And it got enlarged at some point in time to the deck that you have now or had now that you tore down. So I guess my question is, looking at the deck sizes that you have in your neighborhood, what do you think is the hardship that you have to have something which is basically twice the size of everyone else's deck that you want to rebuild? So you want to rebuild it to the size of basically twice as much as everyone else. So my information that I have is the 4 properties to your right as you're looking at your house all have 8x12 decks. They're they go 8 feet into the backyard and then they're 12 feet wide. Your deck, before you tore it down, went, I believe you said it went 15 and a half feet. All right, I believe that's it, and it's 17 and a half feet wide. If you go to the other side of your street and you're going left to right, to the left side of your street, you have one person who has a deck that goes into their backyard that's 10 feet deep, but it's a wraparound porch, so it's a much larger deck than what your current deck is, or your current deck was. And then the house next to that only has a 4x4 deck, which I imagine is a walkout, and then everything else goes back to Oh, and then there's another 8x12 deck. And the other one is the last one, which is the 4 houses down to your left. Property's down is an 8x28 deck. So I guess my question is, what is your hardship that you have if you can bring your deck away from the back property line and still maintain your square footage?
Filings, right?
So there's a number of issues there. So the first one, our deck could only be 4 feet in width if we were to construct it within the 30-foot rear setback. When I went to the town office, they couldn't provide me any like permitting or when that deck was built, nor any maps of a prior deck that you say is 8 by 8 feet previously. So there wasn't even the final occupancy drawing available when the house was built. From looking at the GIS maps, it doesn't look like the deck is original to it, although the images were grainy. It looks like a deck was built sometime in the early 2000s from looking at the GIS photos that I could see. But I don't know about the deck that you're referencing, that it is 8 by 8 feet. When I went to the town to ask about it, they didn't provide any of those drawings or permits. My neighbors, I can't speak to the exact size of their decks. Like you mentioned, my neighbor to the right at 16 Detling has kind of a wraparound, long but narrow, potentially narrower deck. I can't see my other neighbor's deck without going into their backyard. And my neighbor in front of us, I don't know approximately how large their deck is. It looks probably similar in width. They are 16 cutting, I believe. So yes, all my neighbors, most of my neighbors who have the similar design, there's about 3 design types in our neighborhood. Most of them have some form of deck that is not just like I don't know what the structure would be called, but you know, something that's just meant to be a stairwell from the slider. They have some form of deck. In terms of the hardship, in order to make the deck non-conforming, we'd have the added expense and labor of ripping out the concrete slab that our basement slider exits the house onto, and ripping out that concrete and then ripping out the old pilings and putting in new pilings in order to make a 4-foot deck.
Mr. Chair, may I ask the applicant a question?
Why, sure, Bill.
Just to be, when you purchased the unit or the residence, you said that the deck was in place as and as far as you know, this was you had no reason to think otherwise, that this was not a conforming feature of the property, correct?
Yeah, part of our like closing package was that the mortgage company had a surveyor draw up I don't have it right in front of me, but draw up a property map, and you know, they said that all the structures on the plot of land are conforming, and we purchased title insurance and all of that. But yeah, so it wasn't known to us that it was non-conforming when we purchased the house.
Thank you.
So I have another question towards the deck that Bill was talking about. The house was purchased, what was the original, it looks like it was built in 1993, and it was first sold in 2019. And then it was sold again in 2022 when you purchased it. So it was owned for a few years, 3 years before that. I saw a YouTube video dated in 2019 from a realtor that did a showing of the inside of the house in 2019, and it shows the deck as I believe it is that as you purchased it. It was a brown with lots of recently finished, and then had an egress that went down about several feet away from the house, and it had a stairway that went down. And it was basically the size that you were describing of your current deck, of its size. So I have no beliefs that there's any reason why that deck obviously was built. The deck was obviously built before 2019. when it was built before then, I don't know. The fact that you had so much rot on it, things like, and that seems to me like it was built quite a while ago. Or it was enlarged quite a while ago. So that was my input into what Bill was trying to say. I also want to say that decks are, compared to building houses, because I have built houses before, and I do that I have done that kind of work, or I'm supposedly retired. That the construction to reconstruct your deck into a smaller size is not that inexpensive. Seeing as how you have the deck already down, to put a couple of footings in, to cut into your cement and to dig into your footings is not very expensive, and I don't think it would be a great a great cost to you in addition to doing it. Although I do understand that trying to devalue the cost of your property in terms of square footage of your deck, I think that you could keep your square footage of your deck if you just made it longer and around like your neighbor to the left of you.
That would require us to build a different staircase, because then the staircase would butt out further than the length of the house.
Yeah, you would have a different staircase. You would have a different staircase anyway, because you have no staircase right now. So you'd have to put another staircase in as well.
Yeah, but I'm saying the length of the staircase, if we built the deck longer, the staircase would extend past the length of the house, past the structure of the
Well,
house.
it depends on,
It would have to be
how.
like turned.
So I
Okay,
think
so-
we're getting
so
a
I
little
think-
distracted here, Brad.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. This is something we can discuss later, but I was thinking that perhaps you could make it more conforming to the sizes of the decks that your neighbors have, as opposed to building this one, which is basically twice the size of what all your abutters have. At least the ones that go back, that extend further into the backyard. The most of all your neighbors that you have, the largest, the furthest extension into their backyard is 10 feet. And most of them, and the rest of them are all 8 feet. So I was just wondering if you might be able to go back 8 feet, consider going back 8 feet and maybe making it longer or whatever to the side.
So the challenges I see here as we go through the requirements for a variance is this is a bizarre lot shape. It's extremely triangular and there isn't much, let's call it recreation room on the fat part of the triangle because the skinny part just goes on forever on that shape.
Yeah, the
So
most of
there's
the
definitely issues with the hardship of the land. The encroachment to the back setback, I would propose that some of the issues we're dealing with here are if that shrubbery zone that's the federal land was in fact a housing development, now you have a different issue. What you're looking at here is something that'll never be built on unless we have some other strange event happening. The Army might take it over again.
Yeah.
But it's always going to be a forever wild kind of parcel back there. So what you're looking at is they bought this house with the condition as it was when they bought it, not knowing that it didn't have a special permit or a variance to sneak that deck an extra few feet back. And so what we're looking at is to look at this as conditions of a variance and the criteria of a variance, which I had to look up, Bill, because I didn't see him in the staff report for this one.
Yeah, I can share it if you want.
You have these conditions
I think I do.
for
Maybe
a
not.
variance?
I thought I did. Maybe I didn't. Let me see.
Paul, if I may add also, the triangulated part of our property is also mostly a drainage pond for the neighborhood, so it's actually an easement, so that it cuts down even more on the recreational part of our backyard.
Yeah, thank you. I did not know that.
Yeah.
That was a strange little subdivision that went in. We've had other cases in that subdivision.
Also, Mr. Chair, I see we have some guests as well, so we don't want to forget to take public comment if there is any. While I'm pulling this up in the meantime, but
Thank you very much. I forgot about that. I
see we have-
apologize if you folks wanted to comment on the last case.
I wanted to comment on this one, not the last one.
Okay,
Okay. 1 second here, I'll get this pulled up. Let's see here. Just had it open and I closed it. All right, Datling Road, there we are, staff report, boom, boom, boom. Okay. See if we get, should be loading up and then we'll have it. Oh.
Hmm.
Well, wouldn't you know? Let's- Okay, let me get it open on someone else. Well, not a good time for computer crash, is it?
I'll do
it's
it.
the best time, Bill. Otherwise, it's not exciting.
It's opening, it's just like, whoa, taking its time. Okay, let's try this now. Share. Okay, there's a screen. And there it is. Okay. Can you see it now?
Not yet.
Oh,
Gotta share the
I'm,
screen.
I'm looking at it. Oh, for heaven's sake.
Now you're sharing, but it's still
All
black.
right. There we go. All right. So you wanted the criteria.
Oh, there it is. Yay, there you go.
Right there. A
Oh,
long
there you
time for
have it. But I
360.
didn't see it in so many words. Sorry. I was looking for the 5-word reminder.
This is the Hemingway-ish version here.
Mhm.
Yeah, thank you. Good thing I asked you for it. So just to refresh your memories, this is the kind of stuff we need to comment on in our deliberation.
You know, also, Mr. Chair, as I said, we do have some public members.
Yep.
While the board is looking at this, there was a point brought up earlier. It's a good something the board might want to think about. So my other boards like staff reports with recommendations in them. And a while back, this board asked for not to have recommendations. So, you know, if the board ever changes their mind, I mean, they're just my recommendations, you know, so I mean, you probably know what they are anyway on most of them. But like, for example, planning board, they want me to put them in. And you know, but it's up to you guys, but we can always do that. You know, it's
So-
typical.
What I had commented on back when, Bill, when I think you and I had this discussion,
Yeah,
is I did not want the zoning board people to appear prejudiced by what the town was wanting to have happen by making their
Fair enough.
recommendation.
understood.
Because we're supposed to be almost a judicial board here, weighing the pros and cons of the decisions. So I wanted to keep it independent and not have recommendations for the zoning board.
And that is absolutely your prerogative, but it's not because I forgot.
Yeah,
But yeah, just anyway,
so
Hmm.
these are the 3 major condition areas that we need to find in our findings. And we need to find each one of these in the appropriate way when we get into the decision-making portion of this. but as Bill had reminded me in this late evening, and my wife's gonna kill me, but that's okay. We need to go for any public comment. So if the board is okay with questions back and forth at this point, I would like to ask if there's anybody in attendance wishes to speak in favor of this application. Peter.
Hello, everybody. I am actually at 16 Debt Lane. So mine is the property that you saw on the map that's right next to this with the wraparound deck. I hate the wraparound deck. It's horrible design. I hate it. Definitely wouldn't recommend that. I'm actually looking at getting rid of it at some point as soon as I can do so. I want to speak in favor of this application. Stephanie and Dan are great. They're very conscientious neighbors. Their lot it's a interesting shape. Most of it to the right is a drainage pond, so they can't use it for anything. It's a permanent easement. There's an easement in between my lot and their lot, another drainage easement. So they can't build there. They have a narrow strip of land in between my fence and their lot that they can't really do much with. So their main usage is in the back where that deck is gonna go. The footing's already there, the cement's already there from before. They're not adding anything other than wood up in the air. It's not a hardship to me. I don't know anyone in the neighborhood that would care. I'm the only one that can actually see it from my yard because everyone else, all they see is the front of their house. So I think me and my wife would be the only ones affected by it if it even affected anybody. It's federal land in the back. You can't really see much back there. It's enormous and dense. And I think we see a few people a couple of times a year walking back there, but other than that, it's unusable and you just kind of, use it. But yeah, I don't think this is a hardship for anybody. I think it's a great design, honestly, to have a nice normal square shape like that instead of a more elongated, narrower deck like I have, which I don't really like. I think their design is the best use of that space. And I'm in favor of it. I think it's a great idea. I don't think it's a problem for, I don't think this zoning ordinance was designed to prevent something like that being built. There's nobody behind them that it would encroach on, because I think that's the idea, is to not encroach on the rear lot, so that if you have a lot on the other side that the house on it, it's not encroaching on that. But yeah, that's my 2 cents on it.
Well, thank you, Peter.
Thank you.
I have
Is
a
there
question
anybody else that wishes to speak in favor of this application? Is there anyone who wishes to speak in opposition to this application? Is there anyone who wishes to speak? So I assume we just have some silent observers back there in the audience. That's fine. Now, Brad, you raised your hand again. Do you have something further to say?
Yes, I have a question for Peter.
Sure.
Yeah, so Peter, your name sounds very familiar. Were you once a member of the board?
I
Of our
was.
board?
I was
you were?
indeed.
Till recently. Oh, okay, good. So my other question.
You only had one. You only said you had one question.
Okay. Well, let me give you let me do a follow up then. So what do you think the usage, when you talked about the usage of the backyard, being a former board member, what do you think the usage of the backyard would be?
Their backyard?
Yeah, their backyard, what they would use it for. And what that would and what the
Well, I would
impact of
hope-
their large deck would be.
I didn't, they cut out the last thing you said, the what part?
What the impact would be of having such a large deck in their backyard. Because if they have children that want to play and everything like that, that really goes back into the that really cuts into their lawn. and the amount
Well-
of land that they have to use it. So you were
Well,
saying
I
that
would
the usage
say-
of the yard was something, you didn't have a problem with that.
Well, I think the deck covers there's already like a cement slab there, so if there was a deck on top of it, it would almost create a shaded entertaining space. And then if you go a little further, there would be room for kids to play and so forth, but our yards get a lot of underground water. So it's unusable if there's a lot of rain. We get a ton of groundwater that drains towards us.
Right.
Which is why we have drainage easements all over the place. So I think you kind of have to have usable space that is off the ground to be able to use the property to a more well, to have better use out of it, because if it was just ground, it would be very muddy, I think, most of the time. I'm sure their lot gets as much as us, as you're a little lower than mine, and I get a ton of water in my yard. Especially when we get rain in summer, spring, winter, and fall now. We just get rain all year round, so. I think if they didn't have a deck there, it would be, they'd be much worse off for having nice entertaining space. I think above the ground decks give them a nice view of the conservation land. It's really good value to the property. It looks nice. It's dry. You could probably even screen in underneath it to keep bugs out, because we get a lot of bugs from the conservation land. So I think there's a lot you can do with having a nice normal shaped deck that isn't elongated like mine. But I think if there was nothing there, it would not be as good as if there was a nice deck that you can get from the first floor. And that's the other thing, you'd have to go all the way downstairs through the basement and then walk out through the screen, the glass door, which I have to do because I don't have stairs on my deck that I can use, and it's really annoying.
Have you talked to other people that have smaller decks, which are the 8x12 decks, which are most of the people that are around you?
Well, I talked to Jesse at, was it 16 Cutting? But their deck is technically on their side lot. So they were able to get closer to the boundary line, which was also my boundary line when they built theirs. I don't know the size of theirs. It looked similar to what I thought theirs was going to be. And they loved it. They love their deck. But I don't think it is big, because I didn't have as much lot space.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but is their deck larger than a 4x4 deck that you know of? Because according to what I have here, the information that I have here is they have a 4x4 wood deck in their backyard.
I don't know how big it is, but I know they have a
4
deck.
foot by 4 foot. Do you think it's bigger than that?
I only see it from
Back of their deck,
on
so-
my land at an angle.
Okay.
And from my angle, it's impossible to know how long it is. It looks nice though.
So Brad, let's keep this focused on this
Okay.
case. And,
Yep.
and Peter's comments as an abutting neighbor.
Sure, thank you. Thank you
this
for your
property.
input. I appreciate that.
I think the small decks are useless if they're just a way to get downstairs and outside. I think you gotta have a nice deck space in this property area. The ground's just too wet. I don't know how else to say it. It's swampy at times.
I appreciate your
that.
comments, Peter.
Yep.
Does any other board members have questions of Peter or any other discussion points?
No, I'm ready to poll.
All right. So to find a variance, we need to find conditions. Each of the following, as Bill has it on the screen, soil condition, shape, topography of land structures. I think we heard quite a bit about that this would definitely be an issue. And that item 2, a literal enforcement would involve financial hardship or otherwise. And the question there is, they bought the house with that deck. They assume that what could be there. And desirable relief without substantial detriment to the public good and nullifying or derogating from the intent of the bylaw. And I don't see an issue with that. But I'd like some feedback as to what the other folks are thinking on that one.
I agree.
I just have a question, a point of order, is the public discussion still open?
Yes,
Okay, thank you.
I just want to get the board's considerations as to where we're going and what it's thinking about, and if there's any more information that we could have. If the petitioner wants to say anything else, they can. We haven't closed the public comment period. But I just want to make sure we have our potential findings in a lineup here. And then we can close the public comment, the public hearing, go to our deliberation, make a motion, and go home.
Okay, so I only have one.
Leslie, go ahead.
I'm sorry, Leslie.
Yeah, definitely there's an issue with the shape of the land and the topography. And that, you know, as you said, they bought the house thinking that they had that deck by right. And that it would be a a financial hardship if they have to kind of redesign that whole, tear up the slab underneath and all of that. It would possibly be substantially derogating from the bylaw if in fact there were houses behind them, but given that it's conservation land, and I bet there's not really even a trail back there, that I don't see that as being an issue in this case. So I have no problem with granting this.
The variance.
Yeah.
All right, I just went back and pulled up the numbers. They're required to have a 30-foot rear setback. With the deck gone, they've got 34. You put the deck back and they have 18. That's still quite a bit from the rear lot line. And because of the shape of the land, I don't see that as an issue. So, any other folks have comments before we close the public comment period? Hearing none, let's close the public comment period. Is that a motion? I keep forgetting.
Yeah, make a motion to close the public comment portion of the meeting.
All right, anybody have a second?
I'll second.
Let's vote on that. John,
Yes.
Paige,
Yes.
Leslie,
Yes.
Jerry.
Yes,
Okay, and I'll be a yes as well. Do we? Now, I keep getting this mixed up. We closed the public meeting now as well. Is that right, Bill?
I'm at the meeting,
No.
What are we closing?
public comment.
We did
Yeah,
we closed the public comment. Now what are we doing? We
You
voted,
close
we
public
discussing.
hearing.
Deliberation.
Do we
Yeah.
close the public hearing now
You
too?
Close the
no.
public hearing.
Oh,
If,
Yeah.
Yeah, but then no more new information comes in. And you can deliberate and
All right. It's double closure. It gets me all the time. So do we get a motion to close the public hearing?
I have some questions first before we do that.
Go ahead.
I'd like to have some information more about the current deck and the structure of the deck that was there. Because I'm not sure that the deck, because it was probably put up without a permit, means that it probably was not, it may have not been up to code, building codes. And I'm not sure that the footings that are there are of proper current code. So I would like to ask questions about that.
I don't think that's our jurisdiction. I think that's the building commissioner.
Well,
Yeah.
the reason I say that is if it turns out that the footings are small and undersized, then this would be the time where they would have to dig them out and replace them. But that would be the time to potentially decide that they could make the deck more conforming.
No, I disagree
I
with that.
think what we could cut to this, we cut to the chase with what Brad is saying, if I understand, Brad, correct me if I'm wrong. But as you know, this does go through the building commissioner, it will be reviewed first, but what you're saying is that if it turns out that the footings are insufficient to meet code, the permit should not be valid, is what you're.
I'm just saying that there's the financial hardship portion of this is not there anymore.
Yeah, well, so that's, so that this, you're saying that a condition would be that the building inspector determines that the structure is up to code with the existing condition. It doesn't have to be brought up to code.
Well, I'm just saying as part of our discussion that if it's not, then there's the financial hardship portion that they were talking about, is not there anymore.
No, but
Because-
that sentence about the hardship is financial or otherwise, and a 4-foot deck, as
Well,
we
I'm not,
heard,
I'm
is
not talking
terrible.
about
So we want to
necessarily
go.
okay. I wasn't talking about necessarily a 4-foot deck. I was just saying one which is more in the size of all the abutters.
I don't
that are
care
around
about
them.
the abutters. We're talking about this property.
Okay.
And for the most part, you can't even see the abutters when you're talking, you're sitting on your deck.
Just
So can
me.
we close the public hearing, right? Is that the issue now? Do we have a motion to close the
No.
public hearing?
Make a motion to close the public hearing.
Do we get a second?
Second,
John?
Yes, second.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, Paige,
Yes.
Leslie,
Yes,
and Jerry.
yes,
And I'll be a yes as well. So I offered, and Leslie, I think, made some more comments on what we're finding for the variance issues. Circumstances relative to the soil conditions, shape of the land, topography because of the swampland in the corner and so on. The hardships that would happen if you had force a very small deck, you need the second access anyways. And you have the financial issue that, that's not what they bought the house for. And to grant the relief without substantial detriment to the public good or the intent of the bylaw, I think that's fine because you don't have a backyard neighbor. All you've got is the refuge wildland. So I think we've covered the issues for variance, and I just want to make sure that you guys are in agreement with that, or you want to add something to it.
I'm good.
Sounds
good.
good to me.
All right, so Bill's already jotted down all of the notes that we have, so we can just say, you get a motion in the positive, referencing what we found for the various findings to grant the variance. So give me a motion.
all
Somebody.
right. I make a motion to grant the application for a variance at 18 Detling Road, Maynard. Given that we have determined that oh, Bill, you just took away my notes.
Okay, there it is.
Focus. Oh, good, that let's see, that there are circumstances relating to the soil conditions as well as the shape and topography of the land structures that makes not granting, well, that would be a hardship if we didn't grant it. And that in granting it, well, the literal enforcement of the bylaw relieves any hardship, financial or otherwise, to the petitioner, or there's an, oh my God, I don't know how. If we didn't grant it, there would be a financial hardship because they would have to probably dig out their existing footings and the concrete pad on the ground level. And that in granting it, it doesn't nullify or substantially derogate from the intent of the bylaw because there are no houses behind them.
Sounds good. Do we get a second?
Second.
I'll second.
All
Oh,
right.
you can have that one, John.
Any further discussion? No further discussion. All right, John,
Yes.
Paige,
Yes.
Leslie,
Yes,
Jerry,
Yes,
I'll be a yes as well. And so, Bill, it's in your court now. Tell them when what happens.
Well, I don't know if you
Are
were,
they still here? I don't see them.
yeah,
Clear.
Okay,
Stephanie's here, Dan disappeared. It's,
baby.
you can relay it.
Our toddler has to go to bed.
It's me too. I'll draft a decision this week. It should be done. And at that point, we will record the decision with the town clerk. There's a 20-day appeal period. After that, I'll notify you when I register it, and then you want to time it, and in 20 days after that, you can pick up the permit. I mean the decision, and you would have it recorded at the Registry of Deeds, and that's so we have a record of it. So when you sell your house someday or something, everybody knows this is done. That's why we have it recorded like that. So it keeps a record of that, and then you can go right to permits.
Okay, all right, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
so I think that's it for the agenda. Stephanie and Dan, I wish you well. Thank you for your patience tonight. And good luck to you.
Thank you. Thank you for your consideration. Appreciate it. Thank you.
And so, Bill, is there anything that's not on the agenda that we need to discuss tonight?
One thing, just briefly, I sent it out to you all, but if anybody wants to take the citizen training, planning conference, not take the conference. If you want to go to the conference and take classes that are there, the town will reimburse you. It's a lot of good information. I know Paul's been to it. I think Brad went to it. Didn't you go to it last year? Maybe?
Yeah, no, I've done the webinars. I've done about
Okay.
4 or 5 of the webinars. So that's why I was asking you about, I wanted to ask you about, what do you think the schedule, will they release a schedule as to what's when, what's going on when, so I can,
The individual classes.
yeah,
They're working on that now. I know that because I have to write them up for them. But right now, they just did the conference, which is in a couple of weeks, and that has a total of 9 courses.
sure.
The 3 run simultaneously together, which is a problem if you have 2 good courses. So if anybody wants to go, let me know, but go ahead and register and then just send me the receipt and the town will reimburse you. For individual courses, we have a bunch of new stuff that's gonna be coming out where you don't have to go for the day. I'm gonna have a number of webinars and in-person events. We just purchased a membership with some webinars. There'll be some cool stuff, particularly if it's I don't know how much of it will be Massachusetts oriented because the one we just got is national also, but I'll let you guys know. And if anybody wants to take anything, it's good. And
Where's it gonna be?
Holy Cross.
Oh, you gotta go. The food is great.
Yeah, the food. So Paul, when you went, wasn't it a 2-dayer when you went? I can't remember.
I think it was, yeah. This
Yeah,
goes
so
back a
tell
few
them
years,
about-
but it was a good deal.
The food was good. Yeah.
You learn a lot of stuff there. It's good. Yeah, it's good food. Excellent food.
Yeah, they do the Massachusetts first responder group seminars there as well. So yeah, I've been to those, and that's
Yeah.
that's a good take.
So
do a good job
consider
there.
it. I'm not kidding you. It's not boring. It's cool stuff. But the other thing that is everybody knows town meetings coming up, I think, and that is in May. We've got some other stuff on it. As soon as I get everything, I'm running pretty good in a couple of directions, but as soon as I get the town meeting stuff squared away for this one, we can talk about what we want to do. We can finish the work that we just really just scratched the surface of with Brad and with Natalie on, and Paul had some things, so we'll get on that after. I got to get my feet under me here for town meeting.
Yeah.
But at this point, I can't make a motion to adjourn, but if I could.
Yeah. Just one more thing, Paul. Paul and Bill about the the zoning whatever working group you're talking
Yeah.
about. I got the database from Zoe.
Okay.
And it's very, very extensive, and I'm gonna need help in looking at it because there's like 25 categories in it, which I'm
Oh,
sure is
God.
more data that I need to deal with. I mean, the thing I can understand is there's addresses, and then there's a whole bunch of other data that's in it. So, and it
All
doesn't
right.
show the category. So be able to put it down to a useful thing is gonna be I'm gonna need some help with that.
So
Maybe the
what
thing to
format's
do,
the
Brad-
data in?
But that was all the data that Paul you were talking about.
Yeah,
is
what format is it in?
It's in an Excel spreadsheet,
Is
so
it?
it should be able to extract it. But the thing
Yeah.
is, the headings aren't that interesting. I mean, I could manipulate them and then edit them, but it's just I'd have to get some help with what the headings
Yeah,
are.
that'd be
Yeah.
fun. I'd like to work on
Yeah,
that.
it's really pretty interesting stuff. I think it's going to be a very useful thing and it's already at our fingertips, so that's great.
Okay,
All right.
so let's play on that. And Bill, you said after town meeting or near town meeting time when you're done with it? When would
Yeah,
you
yeah.
have
I'm
to
just
play?
yeah. I've got some. I've got to get this stuff finished that we have right now. I just can't put any more at the
On
moment.
plate. Yeah.
on
Great.
it. Stephanie,
Yeah.
want to join the board? I got boards all over the place. Look how much fun we have.
I have my eyes on a few, but I think I gotta cut back on work a little bit before I can commit.
All right.
I gotta pay for this deck and signing.
All right.
Mm.
So I guess that's it for now. So let's get a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Cool. All in
Second.
favor? Gary seconds, all in favor. Yay, we're all in
Yay.
favor.
Yay.
We're out
Bye,
of here.
everybody.
Yeah.
Thanks for persevering, everybody.
Thanks,
Okay.
bye.
Thanks,
Bye,
folks.
guys.
Have a good night.
Good night,
Thanks.
everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Uh-oh. What did I do?